All right, let's talk about a company that's, well, a huge part of life for millions in India, IRCTC. The Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Corporation just dropped its latest quarterly results, and we're going to go under the hood of this massive company to figure out what's really driving it. Is it full steam ahead, or are there some caution signs on the tracks? Let's find out.
Okay, so here's our game plan for breaking this all down. We're going to kick things off with the big headline numbers, the stuff that catches everyone's eye first. Then, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of IRCTC's business engine. We'll look at a tale of two very different segments, dig into the fine print, the stuff you absolutely need to know, and wrap it up by looking at what's coming down the track for them.
All right, first up, let's talk about those headline numbers. Whenever a report like this comes out, these are the figures that jump out, the ones that grab all the attention.
So the profit picture looks pretty darn healthy. We're talking a profit after tax of over 330 crore rupees. Now that's a solid 7.14% jump compared to the same time last year. So yeah, profitability is definitely chugging along nicely.
And what about the top line, the total money coming in? Well, revenue from operations also went up, hitting almost 1,160 crores. This just tells you that their main businesses, selling tickets, serving food, all that stuff is still in very steady demand.
But this next number, this is where you really see their operational muscle. Their EBITDA margin, which is basically a measure of their core profitability from day-to-day operations, it expanded to over 34%. And that is a fantastic sign of efficiency. It means they're really good at managing their costs.
Okay, so the big question is, where's all this money and profit actually coming from? You see, IRCTC isn't just one single thing. It's really 4 different businesses all chugging along under one big name. So let's pop the hood and break down the parts of this engine.
So if you look at how the revenue pie is sliced up, it's pretty interesting. Catering is the absolute giant here, right? It's bringing in almost half of all the money. But, and this is a big but, the part of the business that makes the most cash isn't actually the most profitable. Not by a long shot.
And here's the real powerhouse, internet ticketing. Look at that margin, an absolutely incredible 84% EBITDA margin. While catering brings in the crowds, this high-tech, low-cost part of the business is the real engine that's pulling the entire company's profit train forward. It's a beast.
And this is so important to understand, because when you dig in, you see that not all parts of the business are running at the same speed. It's really a tale of 2 different kinds of runners. You've got your fast sprinters and your steady marathoners.
Yeah, this really tells the whole story of the quarter, doesn't it? On one side, you've got your growth stars. Tourism is just booming, up over 21%, and internet ticketing, our profit engine, is still growing at a really solid clip. But then you look at the other side. Railneer is basically flat, and catering actually dipped a little. So what's the deal? Why the slowdown in those 2 big areas?
Well, we actually got the answer straight from the source, from the company's management on their investor call. And it turns out the dip in catering wasn't because fewer people were buying food on trains. No, it's because last year they had this huge one-time 32 crore rupee order for election special trains. That was a massive boost that just didn't happen this year. It makes perfect sense when you hear it like that.
And you know what? It's pretty much the same story for Railneer, their bottled water business. First, they also lost out on those big election orders. But on top of that, they started selling smaller 500-milliliter bottles on the new Vande Bharat trains. So even though their plants were running more efficiently, selling smaller, cheaper items meant the total revenue just stayed flat.
So on the surface, things are looking pretty solid, right? But, and there's always a but, a really critical part of understanding any company is digging into the auditor's report. And for IRCTC, the auditors have put up some pretty big yellow flags, some legal and financial risks that we really need to talk about.
So this really begs the question, what are these potential roadblocks? What could actually derail what looks like a pretty smooth ride? Now, auditors, they don't give their own opinion, but what they do is point their flashlight at the things you need to be worried about.
And they've flagged 4 big ones here, what they call emphasis of matter items. It's a bit of a mix. You've got some disputes over license fees, some arguments about GST claims, a pretty big anti-profiteering notice, and then there's the really big one, a massive arbitration award against them that's now all the way up at the Supreme Court.
So what does all this mean? Well, in one word, uncertainty. These aren't just minor squabbles. We're talking about potentially huge financial hits. And because they're all still tangled up in legal battles, the company hasn't set aside any money for them on its books. It's like a big cloud of caution just hanging over what otherwise looks like a really sunny financial report.
Okay, so we know the risks. Now let's shift gears and look ahead. What's next for IRCTC? Because despite these legal headwinds, they are absolutely not just sitting still. They have some major growth plans in the works to keep this train moving at full speed.
One of the biggest things on their radar, and this could be a real game changer, is their plan to become their own payment aggregator. Think about it, like a Razorpay or a Paytm, but for IRCTC. Now, they've gotten the initial in-principle approval from the RBI, which is great. But you got to be patient here. Management says the final license is probably still a year to a year and a half away.
And believe me, they are not stopping there. They're firing on all cylinders. They're adding a new Bharat Gaurav tourist train. They're planning new bottling plants to make more rail near. They're building a whole new modern tech platform to help them sell you flights and hotels right alongside your train ticket. And they're gearing up for all the new catering opportunities that are going to come from the massive station upgrades happening across the country.
And so it all comes down to this, doesn't it? On one hand, you have a company with an incredibly profitable core business and a ton of exciting growth plans. But on the other hand, it has to navigate some very, very serious legal headwinds. So the big question is, can IRCTC manage these risks and keep its growth story on the fast track? It's going to be fascinating to watch. What do you think comes next?